And welcome into another edition of the College Football Show. Appreciate you stepping by right here at the Voice of College Football. My name's Mark. Make yourself welcome there in the chat. Leave those comments and questions there. We will take your calls if time allows. We do have three awesome guests lined up for the big show today. And the big show is as follows. You can see right there on the banner. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We go as long as the host determines or as you want us to go. So leave those comments and questions. We appreciate your super chat contributions. You can also contribute through Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That's actually more effective. So we do appreciate those people. And I gathered up a list of some contributors that went that route here in 2025, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And I will give you your just recognition here at some point. But thank you for those contributions in any way they come. Start with the like button. Please hit the like button and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. We would love to get to 100,000 subs before I'm dead and gone. Now, that's not going to be anytime soon. I'm planning to make it to 100, but 100,000 subs, let's do that. All right, great stuff in college football for late May. The SEC powers that be always head to Destin, Florida. It did cross my mind a couple months ago to make a little journey out there to Destin, Florida, to meet up with the SEC coaches and see what I could find. But hey, you can pretty much find out everything from your own living room these days. Just pick up your phone and it's all accessible from there. Regardless, Destin, Florida, the site again this year of SEC meetings, and the meetings involve a lot of things. We know that there are a lot of things that are being discussed that do not catch the national attention to tidy up in regards to rules and certain administrative tasks. But the sexy topic is, of course, the college football playoff and the SEC's impact, their influence, the power wielded by the SEC. And if you look at the thumbnail that I put together for today's show, the SEC is playing the part of the bully this week, and even more so today, and we will get to that. We've got a lineup that includes Josh Neighbors of 103.7 The Buzz, also College Countdown with Josh Neighbors, and of course, he does his work at Bleacher Report as well. Josh is going to be hopefully showing up here in the next few minutes. We got 4:30 Eastern. Ryan Herrings of Locked On Badgers talks some Wisconsin football. One of the more dire situations in college football, don't you think, for a proud program that has won as much as Wisconsin, that is in the realm of a top 15 program in the country? I mean, circa like 2020 and before. Certainly not viewed that way right now. That this has to be a point in which this fan base has reached, I'm not going to say an all-time low, because there are some old-timers there, I'm sure, listening, old-timers like me that remember Wisconsin when it was really down. But to anybody that's only been watching college football for 30 years or so, Wisconsin's always been a factor. But the Wisconsin fan base can't be real happy about Luke Fickell winning 12 games and losing 13 the last 2 years, and also that the schedule looks very difficult, and the prospects of breaking through in the Big Ten are not optimistic. So we'll talk to Ryan Herrings about Wisconsin football and his thoughts about the overall landscape of the game as well. Jason Priester shows up at 5 p.m. Eastern from the Clemson Insider. We've got a programming note. Listen up, everyone. So we will not go live at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Thursday show is going to be at 2:30. 2:30 Eastern on Thursday. Why? We got Steve Day stopping by at 2:45 on Thursday. So we figure might as well just move up the show. If you can hang with me for 15 minutes, and we got Steve Dace dropping by, and we got all sorts of things planned to talk college football with Steve Dace. Again, Michigan Podcast, Steve Dace, 2:45 Eastern. Tell a friend, tell 50, get them on in here, and we will chop it up. All right, I'm going to get to the SEC meetings. And first, I'll hit the chat and see what all of you have. Most important thing I will state during this show today will be the Amazon link is in the description section of this video and all the videos here at the Voice of College Football. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. I actually just reminded my daughter of that last night. She's like, I had to shop for some things on Amazon. I got to get this, and that for my apartment. I said, are you using the Amazon link? Yeah, I got to get the Amazon. Yes, use the Amazon link. You might as well have Amazon send us a few bucks here at the Voice of College Football. We would love to be doing this 6 months from now. Cannot always guarantee that. There are more lucrative things to do in life. So we would love to be here at the Voice of College Football. I can just about, outside of God's intervention, I can just about guarantee that we will be here at the Voice of College Football. We will have a network 6 months from now. So we're not going away. Maybe some of you would like us to, but we will not be going away. However, me personally, we'll see. All right. This box just is not lining up here. We got to do something about that. Doing some production work live here. There we go. How about that? Let's do that. All right. On to the chat. Any familiar names? Here we go. Tukey G. Good to see you. Jackson Johnson. What's up, Voice of College Football Nation? And Jackson is on it. He's got the Amazon link. It's in the chat, folks. Please use the Amazon link when you shop on Amazon. Karen, good to see you as well. Hopefully, I have not caused an Elton John song to be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. George agrees with me that the SEC are bullies, but in a good way, apparently. Timothy, good to see you. George, you love everyone. Karen is one of those dual fans that I typically don't like. However, there's an exception here. If you grow up in a particular area of the country, you root for a particular team, then you go off to college. Okay, that's understandable. I get that. Jim, thank you so much for reminding everyone to hit the like button. We've got Timothy here. I'm an Indiana fan. I cheer for every Indiana team except Notre Dame. I cheer for Indiana first, Indiana schools second, and then all Big Ten schools in that order. All right. Okay. A faithful Hoosier is Timothy. Dave's here. And Timothy is just a football fanatic. George is never at a loss for words. Never. If we show up for Steve Dace, and if you're just joining us, yes, Steve Dace will be with us at 2:45 on Thursdays. So the show is starting early on Thursday. We will rev it up at 2:30 Eastern. Steve Dace stopping by at 2:45. I'll do my best, George, to see if I can bring Steve Dace to tears on Thursday. George is limiting his list of those he loves. Maybe not quite everyone. Not Notre Dame, not Miami, not BYU. Okay? I don't know what's going on there, but that's okay. That's all right. Our big shows here Monday through Friday at 4 Eastern, except for tomorrow, Thursday, this week, 2:30 Eastern, Steve Dace, Michigan podcast. All right. while we wait for our guests, and, give me just a second here. We want to make sure that I did not screw anything up here, which is it's not just possible, it's likely. Okay, we shall see. Let's get to this article from the SEC meetings. I love this.
We asked people who said they've had Domino's stuffed crust pizza before to compare it to our new stuffed crust.
This is exactly how I remember at my friend's birthday.
The last one.
And since this Domino's pizza ad aired for like 3 seconds and the audio may have been barely identifiable through the microphone, that has probably killed the monetization for this live stream by YouTube. Anyway, so this is according to Brian Kelly, and that's, of course, his appearance on the Paul Feinbaum show, of which my appearance on the Paul Feinbaum show has yet to be scheduled specifically, but Jackson's working on it. So Heather Dinich reports LSU's Brian Kelly on Wednesday said SEC coaches favor adding one non-conference game against the Big Ten opponent in a scheduling agreement, but they, quote, need a partner to do it. It's about time that I slice and dice up and chop up this SEC Big Ten situation because, man, just the barbs that are flying back and forth, and they're coming from the SEC circles more than the Big Ten at this point, about basically taking over college football, one, and number two, the SEC still maybe ignoring the results of the last two college football playoffs, in which current SEC teams are 0-4 against current Big Ten teams, correct? Ohio State beat Texas and Tennessee. Michigan beat Alabama. Washington beat Texas. Okay. Quote, we want to compete against the Big Ten, Kelly said, following the last day of coaches' meetings. Look, the Big Ten right now holds it on the SEC. They won the last two national championships. I'm surprised that Brian Kelly can even say the words national championships. That's a bit surprising. That it's almost like for you old timers that used to watch Happy Days. It's like when the Fonz couldn't say wrong, he would go roar, roar, roar. He couldn't say that he was wrong. I wouldn't think that the words wrong could come out of the wrong. Stuck on Fonz. Brian Kelly could utter the words national championship back to back. I'm sure he can say the word championship and he can say the word national, but to put those two together is probably a difficult thing for Brian Kelly to state. But he apparently said it here. They won the last two national championships. That's the reality of it. We want to get challenged in that regard, and we'd like to be able to get that done. I would love to see it. It probably flies in the face of my efforts to bring scheduling equity to college football. But in terms of seeing the best play and the two power conferences, the two power brokers in the sport, and also to see entertaining matchups and historic type matchups, I'm all for it. That is up to our commissioner and the ADs to see if that can happen or not, but that's the wish of the room. So were the SEC coaches just sitting around saying, we won at the Big Ten. We just can't wait to get after them. SEC scheduling has been a major topic of conversation this week as the league works to determine if it wants to stay at 8 conference games or move to 9. Well, if they listen to the current coaching situation there, they're going to stay at 8 and add difficult non-conference games against the Big Ten. Kelly said he would favor playing 9 SEC games and adding the additional Big Ten opponent. Does that mean that the SEC from here on would ignore that the Big 12 and the ACC even exist? Brian Kelly does not coach one of these teams out of the SEC or the former SEC Eastern Division, Georgia, Kentucky, Florida, and also South Carolina, that play an ACC rivalry. Therefore, if you're going to ask South Carolina to play Clemson every year and then have to face a Big Ten opponent and play 9 conference games, no wonder Greg Sankey is asking for 5 automatic bids. The possibility of a scheduling partnership between the two leagues developed from multiple in-person meetings of the Big Ten SEC advisory group, but one SEC source said the topic was dead in the water at the commissioner level. Still, Kelly said the coaches made their voices clear this week to their respective athletic directors and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. You've got to get a partner who says, we're in for that too. Arkansas coach Sam Pittman said the decision should have been made on what should be exciting for television and what the fans would most enjoy. And said the SEC wants to go to 9 conference games. So basically, what the SEC is opting for here is basically to say, let's play 9 conference games because we're going to, we've got 16 teams and we're going to play 9 conference games instead of 8. Therefore, we are going to play an additional week of conference games, and those are going to be much more lucrative both at the gate, but even more so through media rights than what we're doing now, playing Chattanooga and Grambling, etc. Okay. And then if they play more difficult non-conference schedules, they figure, hey, if we get the 5 automatic qualifiers into a 16-team playoff, we're not going to care so much what our records are. If we send 2 beat-up 8-4 teams from the SEC to the playoff that lost to a Big Ten team in non-conference play and lost to Clemson or somebody else, if we send South Carolina 8-4 to the playoff and they went 6-2, or let's say 7-2, because they'll play 9 conference games in the SEC, and they also lost to, Iowa, and they lost to Clemson, so be it. We'll have 8-4 teams go to the playoff. Doesn't matter, because once they get to the playoff, they're 0-0. So let's just get them to the playoff. There's an overwhelming sense this week from coaches and athletic directors that they'd like to know what the future playoff format will look like before making any scheduling decisions. Makes sense. South Carolina coach Shane Beamer said the coaches did not vote on anything this week. He said that while he would be willing to play a Big Ten opponent along with rival Clemson, so Shane Beamer chiming in here, and he was my example, he still prioritizes the in-state rivalry over other scheduling options. Sure, for me, I think it's ironclad, South Carolina, Clemson. There's people above me who make the decision, but I would never want that game to go away. Rivalries and rivalry weekend are what make the sport great. This, above anything else, separates college football. Rivalries. It is the most distinguishing point of college football. Rivalries. I know how important that game is to the people of South Carolina, and I don't want that game going anywhere. Missouri coach Eli Drinkwitz said the Big Ten has caught the SEC's attention with Michigan and Ohio State winning the national title the past 2 seasons. It bothers us as competitors. Drinkwitz said, "We feel like we're the best conference in college football, and we want to make sure that the ultimate prize at the end of the year is that national championship trophy." Well, this has nothing to do with that. We have not been able to do that the last 2 years, and I think we're all competitive enough. That's often what we're competing for. I don't know if 2 years is a data point yet or a trend. I got a lot of respect for Eli Drinkwitz, and he's doing a heck of a job at Missouri, but I can poke so many holes in these statements. It's not funny. Obviously, we have to take a look and see what we can do better. Okay. So, God bless him. Eli Drinkwitz says, these 2 national championships going to the Big Ten has caught our attention. Okay. It bothers us as competitors. Fine. We feel like we're the best conference in college football. Fine. You can still feel that way. I actually believe that the SEC still is the best conference from top to bottom, but it's not been the best conference at the elite levels the last 2 years. And we want to make sure that the ultimate prize at the end of the year is the national championship trophy. Like Eli Drinkwitz has any say in a national championship trophy. Does anyone believe that he will have any say in a national championship trophy? Has he had a say in any national championship trophies from the past? Was he the best person to be speaking on behalf of SEC coaches concerning securing the national championship? He has 0 national championships. He has 0 college football playoff appearances. He just started winning 2 years ago. He was a under 500 coach as of 2 years ago. And again, he's done a great job the last 2 years, and the recruiting has improved considerably under Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou. But it's kind of funny that he actually thinks that his team and his program and his efforts have anything to do with any of this. We've not been able to do it the last 2 years. See, if Kirby Smart was saying this or Nick Saban was saying this, we've not been able to do that for the last 2 years, then it would be like, okay, yeah, your teams and your programs that are the ones that are counted upon to deliver have not gotten it done the last 2 years. And I think we're all competitive enough. That's often what we're competing for. And I respect Eli Drinkwitz, and he's running a fine program, but right now, Mizzou is not competing for a national championship. Then he says, I don't know if 2 years is a data point. Coach Drinkwitz, 2 years is 2 data points. 1 year would be 1 data point. Each year would be a data point when counting national championships. Now, we have all sorts of data points. Each game could be a data point. But in this context of national championships between conferences, he doesn't know if 2 years is a data point. Two data points. Or is it a trend? That I can understand. We don't know if it's a trend. Obviously, we have to take a look and see what we can do better. And again, you need to do a lot better, Eli Drinkwitz, if you want to be considered in your program to have anything to do with any national championships. I don't know what he's talking about. Sometimes coaches speak on matters, and maybe he was asked all these questions and he was just the guy that spoke up, or maybe he was just the guy that chimed in and had better things to say than other coaches whose programs are actually in this conversation. But sometimes coaches, just like you guys in the chat, accuse each other of latching onto your conference ties when you have bad football teams. Sometimes the coaches do the same thing, and they they latch on to the conference pride and the conference and its effort and place in college football and its effort to win a national championship, even though his particular program up to this point has shown no ability to win a national championship. So that's where we stand. Again, Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, has made a lot of comments in recent days, a lot of bold comments about SEC supremacy, SEC's impact on the playoff, and what the SEC wants, the SEC will get, and that the SEC may supersede even the NCAA in helping to run the sport. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. We're going to talk some Wisconsin football. We got our guy, Ryan Herring, showing up from Locked On Badgers. Ryan, what's going on today?
Man, better than I deserve. Always glad to be here to talk college football. I appreciate the opportunity.
I like that slogan. Glad you picked that one up too. Yes, me as well. Put me in that category, doing much better than I deserve. For sure. How you been these days?
Been great. Yeah. Summer. So I live in northern Wisconsin. It's finally getting warm. It's finally starting to get nice. And official visits start this weekend. So we've been busy kind of tracking that kind of stuff. So yeah, like I've been doing great, man. The kids are about to get out of school. We got some vacations lined up and college football's under 100 days away. I've also been low-key really having some fun with the SEC still trying to rationalize the Big Ten winning the last couple national titles. So I've been kind of having some fun with that as well.
And after decades and decades of SEC supremacy, Big Ten folks should take some pride and should have some fun with that. No doubt about that. So when you say that there are official visits starting this week, and we did our Ohio State show earlier today, same holds true there. What is Luke Fickell and his staff selling right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll say this. Wisconsin itself still has a name that has quite a bit of cachet nationally. So there's a couple really interesting prospects coming up. But the vision is it gets harder to sell the longer you get from hiring Luke Fickell without seeing the success, right? Last year, Wisconsin won 5 games. They didn't go to the bowl game for the first time in a couple decades. It's getting harder to sell, and you can see it a little bit on the recruiting trail. The momentum has slowed down from the first couple years. You mentioned you had Ohio State. You did Ohio State show the other day. They are bringing in a really interesting quarterback that has committed to the Badgers, but I would call it a bit of a soft commitment. And Ohio State is somebody that could be lurking there. Ryan Hopkins is coming in. He's going to be the quarterback for Mater Dei this year, which we all know what Mater Dei is as a high school program. So that's a big one for Wisconsin to hang on to. And then Amari Latimer is a 4-star running back coming up from the South. Big time target there with Tennessee after him, Miami, Oklahoma, Georgia. So a couple really, really nice prospects coming up, but you're not wrong. You have to start winning to start start selling this vision at Wisconsin, because eventually it's, 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 isn't good enough.
Got Ryan Herrings here from Locked On Badgers. Please check out his work. You see his Twitter handle right there that you can follow him and everything that he's got going on across the landscape of college sports with Wisconsin football, basketball, etc. Now, when I was introducing everyone and letting everyone know that you were going to be on board today, and I mentioned Wisconsin as a top 15 program in the country, let's say circa 2021 and everything going back to the beginning of Barry Alvarez, that, this is a program that never quite reached the elite, but it was right there. It was right there on the next level and just, had tremendous success for all that time. But beyond that, Ryan, the thing that we could be sure of Wisconsin football, and that I could state that Wisconsin might have been better than anybody else in all of college football from Barry Alvarez on, was having an identity. They might have been the masters of having identity. That their identity was clearer than anybody else's, especially on offense, but even the defensive front seven and where they would place there. What's the identity of this program, and maybe what this team could be in 2025?
That's an excellent question. And, it goes back to did Wisconsin do wrong by deviating from their identity, or did they do wrong by just hiring the wrong person to deviate from their identity? I do think there's a bit of a misnomer when people look at Wisconsin and say, see, I told you, you can't throw the ball at Wisconsin. Well, maybe they could have if they had gotten a better quarterback than Braden Locke. You know what I mean? Like, you can throw the ball at Wisconsin, but you also have to understand who you are. And I think they maybe had too much of a whiplash change there, going from what they were doing to they called it the dairy raid. What is the identity this year? They did bring in Coach Jeff Grimes, who was previously at Kansas, Baylor. He wants to run the ball more. He wants to go back to a little bit of what Wisconsin did, but with a mobile quarterback. And honestly, maybe that is the middle ground that they should have gone for from the start, right? Let's run the ball. Let's be power football, but let's have some mobility and maybe an X factor at the quarterback spot. So I think they're maybe now 2 years into it, settling into what they should have been attempting from the start. But let's be honest, when I don't know if you remember when Phil Longo was hired as the offensive coordinator, coming off what he did at North Carolina, coming off the work he did with Drake May and Howell, a lot of people loved that move. It was celebrated. It was Wisconsin's going to get better quarterback play and pair it up with those running backs. And it just didn't work. So I think Badger fans are excited to see what Jeff Grimes does. It's going to be a little more return to what Wisconsin has been the last couple of years, but they do have to prove it. They do have to show it. And Billy Edwards is going to have to be a decent quarterback for them this year coming over from Maryland, because none of it works if you don't at least have decent quarterback play.
Do you think there's any way that Danny O'Neil coming in from San Diego State has a possibility of challenging?
Not this year. The coaches were very clear that Billy's the guy, Danny's the two. I will say this, having a really solid backup quarterback, and I think Danny O'Neil can be that. He's pretty dynamic athletically, not the biggest guy, not the strongest arm. Having a good backup's a big deal in college football. A lot of teams don't go the year without losing their starting quarterback. Wisconsin has lost their starter the last 2 years. So having a solid backup is important, but no, Danny's here for to give you a little bit of experience in the number 2 spot, and then to compete next year for the starting spot with 4-star freshman Carter Smith.
Ryan Herring stopping by. You can catch him on Locked On Badgers. Delivers a podcast every day for you to enjoy on Wisconsin football and athletics across the board. Ryan, the Wisconsin fan base is legendary, and I got to think that most of the time, even when it's maybe not considered a season that's going to cycle up, that they still were used to, okay, we always have a shot, but based on what's happened the last 2 years and then flowing into another year with a difficult schedule and a lot of uncertainty, that what's the level of excitement that you gauge on the barometer of Wisconsin football fans compared to what you're used to at this point of the year?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, there's an element in spring, and I'm also a baseball guy. You know, hope springs eternal. Every year, it's kind of like, yeah, everybody's in the best shape ever. I mean, every start of every football season, you're excited. You're excited about the young pieces, but you mentioned the schedule. Wisconsin has to go to Bama this year. They go to Oregon. They have Ohio State. They have to play. They go to Michigan, right? Those are 3 incredibly tough roadies. Plus, they get Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, and Indiana. That's a brutal schedule, man. And so Badger fans are honestly, and this sounds, if you were to say this 4 or 5 years ago, I think Badger fans would be incredibly disappointed. Badger fans are hopeful for 7 wins, 8 wins. 8 wins would be, I think, for a lot of people, a tremendous season. But it's still football. It's still a chance to go to Camp Randall. It's still a chance to eat brats and drink beer with your guys and your gals. So people are excited, but it is a nervous excitement. And I think people are apprehensive about where this program could be headed in the bigger picture.
Yeah, the big picture, that is the talk typically at this point of the year, because we don't have football quite yet close enough to really talk about what's going on in camp, of course. And it's in the rearview mirror, spring practice. So a lot of big picture talk down at the SEC meetings in Destin, Florida. And man, they sometimes throw out comments, starting with Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, like they're just ready to take over the sport. Like, well, we're going to go with 5 auto bids and the other 11 go to everyone else in whatever fashion. You know, crazy things like that being thrown out. And Brian Kelly said all the SEC coaches in that room were saying, we want a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. We want to take on the Big Ten. And that's great. That would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal to see. from a Badger perspective, when the playoff discussion and format is rolled out, if this was 10 years ago, there'd be a lot of juice about, okay, where do we factor in and does this help us? But it's got to seem kind of distant in a sense.
Yeah, I've had some Badger fans tell me, I can't believe I live in a life where Indiana made the playoffs before Wisconsin. And listen, no shot to Indiana at all.
Yeah.
Like,
who would have thought that 5 years ago?
It's unbelievable. It's just some of it's timing. Like life is timing, right? You walk in the wrong door at the wrong time and you don't meet your wife, or the right door at the right time and you do. And Wisconsin had some great teams in an era where only the top 2 made it to the playoffs. Only the top 4 made it to the playoffs. I think Badger fans are still interested in it. 2 years is a couple data points, but I think you mentioned this earlier. I was just catching a little bit of your last segment. It doesn't make it necessarily a trend. The Badgers can still recover from this. And in that sense, a 12-team playoff, 16-team playoff, when you start talking about auto bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, Badger fans' ears perk up, because I think we still look at ourselves as in that group of teams that can be right on that next tier, because there's a 20-year proof of concept that Wisconsin can do it. There's the Big Ten resources, fan support, the facilities. There isn't a good amount of in-state talent. There's a proof of concept here. It can work at Wisconsin. And 2 years of deviation doesn't mean that's where we're going to be for the next 10 or 20. So I think people still perk up, but you're not wrong in that Wisconsin fans are a little more, all right, let's get back to 7 wins before we start worrying about where those auto bids are going. So I think you're right on that. It's a pivotal season for the Badgers. Year 3 of Fickle. This can still go in really either way. They have to be better this year. And if they are, next year's schedule is easier. So if you are with this schedule this year, you show improvement, then you go into next year with an easier schedule, and it feels like things are back on track.
Ryan, where do you stand in this playoff? What would you like to see? What do you think is fair, entertaining? What's the best route for you?
So I think once you've kind of opened this door, you've gone to 12. I think you just got to get to 16 and then straight seed it. Does it devalue bowl games? Does it devalue some of the regular season? Yes, but we've already done that at this point. So now let's make the best solution going forward that makes sense. I think 16 makes sense. Are there teams that don't deserve to be in there? Absolutely. But there were teams that, quite frankly, probably didn't deserve to be in a 4-team playoff. And you could see that with some of the results. You remember back to a Michigan State team getting murdered, like in a playoff situation. That's true in every sport. There's teams that make the NBA playoffs that don't deserve to be there. There's teams that make the NFL playoffs that don't deserve to be there. So I think it's 16 teams. You do have to weigh the Big Ten and the SEC, and I think a certain number of auto bids makes sense there. That's where the talent is. That's where the NFL will tell you where the talent is. That's who wins the national titles. So I think that's where we're headed. It's going to be Big Ten SEC with some outliers, and I think 16 teams makes the most sense for me.
Can you give us one Wisconsin player that you are excited to watch this year?
Oh, man, let's do it. I'm going to give you one. So Jaden Ballard, let's start there. And there are some people that play college fantasy football, which I'm in a league. If you're looking for a bit of a sleeper, Jaden Ballard has been on Ohio State's roster for years, has never done anything, but he has all the physical attributes of an Ohio State receiver. He's 6'3". He runs a 4.3. He is blown up in spring. It's very early. Oh, my guy, Chris Hart. I love Chris. Chris listens to my show, too. He's a great dude. It's not Eugene Hilton this year, Chris. Jaden Ballard is going to be a starter. He's going to give the Badgers something on the boundary they haven't had in a while, which is that big, physical, fast receiver. I would put a pin in him and be pretty excited to see what he does this year for the Badgers.
Ryan, let everyone know where they can find you and what you've got going on a daily basis.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Ryan and Bucky on Twitter, Locked On Badgers, always talking Badgers if anybody's interested to stop by. So, like I said, I very much appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk some college football, man, and looking forward to the next time.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you, man. Good stuff out of Ryan Herrings. Again, you can catch him on Locked On Badgers. Our next guest showing up, Clemson football from the ACC, and we've got that, of course, would be Jason Priester from Clemson Insider. Looking forward to that. And as we bring in great guests every day here at the Voice of College Football and some new people, follow those guests in. Keep in mind that we're here every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, folks. So if you love college football beyond your own team, this is a great destination for you. Great chat, great people, great community here at the Voice of College Football. Speaking of which, Patreon members, YouTube members, we definitely honor you. We've been scrolling many of your names down on the ticker down below. Thank you for joining us here at the Voice of College Football. I mentioned a watch party a couple weeks ago. Two things popped up that negated our attempt at a watch party. One was that my laptop blew up that week. So unexpectedly, my faithful laptop, after about 11 years on the job, just, and maybe I was the culprit there. Maybe I did something. Maybe it'll never be discovered, but maybe I wasn't aware. I didn't think so, but kind of gave the signs that maybe something happened. Which reminds me of a story from the Worldwide Leader where technically there was not supposed to be any drinks in the control rooms. And then there was an amendment to that to allow drinks with tops on in the control rooms, because these poor people would be in there for 10 hours at a time working on shows and so forth, productions. But we had a very expensive, I was going to call it a switcher, the director board. Shoot, I've been away from TV for too long that I forget the terms of the board that the director, the technical director, I guess it's a TD board, the technical directors board shorted, went out, and then it was discovered, oops, somebody spilled some Coke. And, you're talking about like a $100,000+ piece of equipment. And, had to move shows and move studios and move, I should say, control rooms. Yeah. I recall that happening. Traveling Fools. Look at that. Yo. Good to have you, man. Always good to have you. And I have not put the call-in line in the chat. One basic reason is I booked up the show with 3 guests. We possibly don't have one showing up. So I'll leave the line there in the chat. We also have Jason Priester stopping by to talk some Clemson football here in a few minutes. Let's see. Should be about 15 minutes. So give me a call in the meantime. Otherwise, we're going to march through this. It's given me all sorts of ideas for videos. And if you've noticed, I do somewhat apologize that I do not produce the videos that I used to. I do not produce the level of content that I used to. It's just not, unfortunately, paying off. So not producing the videos, we're basically almost turning into a live show channel here. And we actually have a great idea for a new show that I'm not quite ready to announce. Not quite ready to announce, but almost ready to announce, involving one of your favorite personalities. In addition to me, one of your favorite personalities and myself, I believe we're going to venture into a bit of a new show coming up this summer to lead us into the college football season. So be looking out for that. We also, of course, have our weekly show with Leanne Herring. That's on Wednesday night. That's tonight, 8:30 Eastern time, right here on the big channel. And that's our recruiting and transfer portal update show on the move. And it's really remarkable when we go through all the prospects that Leanne has contacted and had conversations and gained intel on. We have a big time national recruiting analyst right here with Leanne joining me every Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern. So we'll be here. We're going to take your calls. We're going to do a bit of a segment on Ole Miss, just to be able to clip that off and throw that on the Ole Miss channel. So you'll hear a little Ole Miss, but national recruiting otherwise, and your calls coming up tonight at 8:30 Eastern. Thank you, Todd. Leanne is top notch. And while I was claiming not to be producing videos anymore, which I haven't for a few weeks now, I will say that this article right here from the SEC meetings gives me some ideas for some easy content right here. I could certainly just dive into what Brian Kelly has to say about the Big Ten and scheduling games against the Big Ten. We could certainly do that. And then to get into what Greg Sankey has said this week, that's another one. And then Shane Beamer, that's fine. That's to be expected. He's going to say that, hey, bring on the Big Ten. Would love to have a Big Ten opponent. I'm willing to play that game. However, Clemson's number one. That's our in-state rival. Can't touch that. That's totally understandable. And then for Eli Drinkwitz, again, I don't understand, or I'm not aware of the context of these comments. Don't know that he jumped out and said this or that he was asked this, but he was on record. But it's just funny considering Missouri's position in college football that he would be the guy that would be making all these statements about, hey, we're still the best conference. We feel like we're the best conference. We've not been able to pull through the last 2 years. We did all this in the past. We're doing all this. It's like, well, you're really not part of that until further notice. Matthew, Mark, when do you release your top quarterback rankings? That's a great question because I've done those every year for however many years. And the way things are going right now, they will not be released at any time. So sorry to disappoint, but probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen. Well, of course, I would have Arch nationally top 10. I was thinking SEC for a second. Arch Manning in the top 10 nationally. I would probably rank Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier. Those three ahead of Arch Manning. And I am not coming up with anyone else. I'm really not coming up with anyone else. Lenore Sellers. Maybe DJ Lagway. Maybe. Yeah, he would be my 6th, 7th, 8th quarterback in the country right now. That's where I'd rank him. There you go. I'm right there with you, Matthew. 8 to 12 range. I may even have him higher than you do because I'm not thinking of anybody else that I would take over him. Now, is that a projection? Yes. It's less ranking and more projection. And somebody called me out on that the other day. That was Tony Gerdeman on our Ohio State show, not intentionally calling me out, but basically saying, I don't understand people who build rankings on projections. You can only rank the guy. Well, if we did that, however, we could only rank like 40% of the quarterbacks in the country because the other ones we'd have to say, well, we don't know enough about Dante Moore. We don't know enough about Julian Sayin or Bryce Underwood. We can't rank any of these guys because we haven't seen them play. No, I think you can make a reasonable projection, as I and others have made in the past, when the perfect example that I offer up just about every time is when Nick Saban tells me and everyone else that Bryce Young is the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama, and we haven't even gone to spring practice yet. Now, when it was Jake Coker versus Blake Sims in 2013, or I'm sorry, 2015, et cetera, 2014, 2015, in that range, that told us that Nick Saban had two quarterbacks that he could work with, and he was going to let them battle it out for the starting position. But Alabama's quarterback room was still pretty full, still pretty talented, and he still knew Bryce Young is the guy. I don't even have to go to spring practice to tell you that Bryce Young is the guy, even though he's only thrown 4 passes in college football that were meaningless. So I could go by that and say, and I think I ranked Bryce Young the second best quarterback in the country in 2021 going into the season. Yeah, you have to project. Otherwise, Texas doesn't have a quarterback. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, all these teams, Notre Dame, they don't have quarterbacks. So we completely leave them off the rankings. Now, you could say that they're unproven. Who's an average quarterback out there? Who's not much better than average? You know, Avery Johnson of Kansas State, or Ethan Kalkimanis, who has started a year at Rutgers and a year and a half at Minnesota. He's got 2.5 years of experience. Ethan Kalkimanis, is he more proven than Arch Manning? Yes. Do we believe that he's a better quarterback than Arch Manning? I don't think there's a soul on the planet that believes that. Is it possible that Arch Manning's a complete bust and will be sitting on the bench by week 4, and Ethan Kalkimanis will have a decent season to a good season at Rutgers, and he will still be a better quarterback than Arch Manning? It's possible. I give it about a 3% chance of happening. Tyler Van Dyke. Yes, he's a more proven quarterback. And why am I blanking on where Tyler Van Dyke went? He just left Wisconsin. Where did he transfer? I'm blanking out. Preston Stone went to Northwestern from SMU. Tyler Van Dyke went to, did he go to a G5? Where'd he go? Tyler Van Dyke, please. Tyler Van Dyke. Tyler Van Dyke. This reminds me of I went to SMU. That's where SMU immediately popped into my head because of the Rhett Lashlee Miami connection, but I thought, well, they've got a starting quarterback with Kevin Jennings. He didn't go to SMU because he's not going to play there. But yes, he did. Yes, Edward, they do have this thing called Google, and that's what I was in the process of doing, but I would rather be able to think of it. My tests on Memorial Day, hanging out with my friend, he was quizzing me on the pitching rotations and the starting lineups of the 1975 through 1980 Cleveland Indians. Of which, once we got to like 78, I did rather well. Pretty much nailed their stats, because that was my wheelhouse when I first started watching. There we go, George. Good call there. And then came the Kentucky game, and enter Kyle Trask, and the rest is history. Very brief history, but certainly a fun season for Florida offensive football. And then Kyle Trask went to the NFL, right? As he's holding a clipboard for somebody. I heard the name. Shoot, who was the Florida quarterback? Will Grier, that went to West Virginia. He's another guy. Great. Even more so than Kyle Trask. Tremendous college quarterback. Not enough arm strength to play in the NFL. So, possible videos with Eli Drinkwitz, Brian Kelly, and Greg Sankey, if I get around to it. We had some unfortunate news about a Baylor football player dying overnight in an apparent shooting. Yes. This being reported by Adam Rittenberg. Sorry to take the show down this path, but it's news. Baylor defensive lineman Alex Foster, 18, Greenville, Mississippi, shooting. Redshirted in 24, went through spring practice. Reports of a shooting after midnight. Found a single male victim in his car with multiple gunshot wounds. The man was taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead about a half hour later. 18 years old. So for what it's worth, we dedicate today's show to young Alex Foster, Baylor. Also, in the college football world, from SEC meetings, which basically are saving us at this point, I got to read up on this 511 model. What is Greg Sankey talking about? Is this what I think it sounds like? The only conclusion I can come to in a 511 model would be, okay, in a significant pivot from the highly publicized push for automatic qualifiers. Can you guys see this article? Yes. In the next iteration of the CFP, the SEC on Tuesday took a heightened interest in a 16-team model that would include the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and 11 at-large bids. I'm all right with that. I believe I am. That's what we're doing right now. Okay. 511 model. And as Sankey says here, our own ability to earn those berths, said at the conclusion of the second day of spring meetings. At the coaching level, the question is, why would that be fine? Why would not we want to do that? We talked about 16 with them, so good conversation, not a destination. But for the first time, I've had the ability to go really in depth with ideas with them. So for the first time this week, I'm giving Greg Sankey some credit. So he runs a great conference, and he's doing a great job, but some of his comments have been just a little strong, which I believe in strength, that's for sure, but not at the detriment of others. Sankey, the other FBS commissioners, and Notre Dame AD Pete Bavacqua need to determine the playoff size. Yeah, and the format. There's a disconnect between the league's athletic directors and coaches, which appeared Tuesday in public comments. Florida AD Scott Strickland and Texas A&M AD Trev Alberts were both adamant about wanting automatic qualifiers, which would go along with the league adopting a 9-game league schedule. So I get what the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do. We've talked about this. I have talked about this ever since Tony Petitti became the Big Ten commissioner and opened his yap just a couple weeks after he got the job and said, we're going to play really tough games in this conference, especially in late October and November. We want the elite teams playing the elite teams, but on top of it, we also want to get as many playoff teams out of the Big Ten as possible. Those are contradictory statements, the way it's always been done, unless you've got automatic bids. All right, let's talk some Clemson football. We got Jason Priester stopping by from Clemson Insider. Jason, what's going on?
Oh, man. Staying busy. How about you, bud?
We're doing the same. We're right there with you.
Yeah,
Check out Jason's work.
It is a busy time of year for me.
Yeah, you got some baseball going on.
Baseball, recruiting, football never stops. So that's the money maker. But yeah, got some baseball going on this weekend too.
Okay. What's the big series?
It's regional time, man.
Oh, we're in the regionals.
Yeah, Clemson's hosting a regional for the third year in a row. Clemson's going to open it up with USC Upstate Friday at 6. Kentucky and West Virginia are the other two teams in the 4-team regional.
Oh, I'd like to see those teams play football. Kentucky, West Virginia, USC, and Clemson. Yeah, we've never seen Clemson and USC play football.
USC Upstate, big difference.
Oh, USC up. Oh, it's one of these like big three, and then they're like, upstate. I missed that. Okay.
The Spartans, the USC Upstate Spartans.
Okay. South Carolina Upstate. Okay. How big is that school?
Not very. It's a smaller school up in the Upstate.
Right.
Pretty familiar with those guys. They usually play at least once a year.
Jason, we've got some official visits this weekend, don't we?
Yeah, Clemson's, they do their one big official visit weekend every year. This is the weekend when they're going to host most of their official visitors. There's going to be some big names on campus, but it's not the only weekend they're going to host official visits. They have an offensive lineman that will be in later in the month, kind of Dabo Sweeney making an exception for him. They have a defensive tackle, Keyshawn Stancil, who just actually announced an offer last night that Clemson's been in on for a while. He's going to come in later in June, so Dabo kind of making an exception for a couple of guys. But most of them will be here this weekend. There's been some names that have been cut from the list, but it's still a pretty good group of guys. Heavy on offensive lineman, a big-time running back coming in, the best linebacker in the country, in my opinion, coming in. We can go through them however you want to, but I got about well over half a dozen uncommitted guys coming in.
Is the linebacker, well, I was going to guess the kid that committed to USC that decommitted from Georgia. No, who are we talking about there?
Tyler Atkinson, the 5-star out of Grayson. He picked up one of Clemson's opening offers last summer, and he ended up including Clemson in his original top 10 before they'd even offered. But as the year wore on last year, Clemson kind of fell off the radar with him. Once they hired Tom Allen after the season, promoted Ben Boulware to the linebackers coach. I don't know if it was Boulware's first stop, but it was one of his first stops, was in to see Atkinson. It was Boulware, Dabo Sweeney, and Mickey Kahn. Mickey Kahn, longtime coach there at Grayson High School, so you got a connection there. And, big credit to Boulware because I think he's been a big part of getting Clemson back in the mix here. They're one of a handful of schools that are going to get an official from Atkinson. And Clemson did have 2 linebackers set to come in. One was 4-star Caleb Gordon. He's a 3-star on some other services, depending on where you look. But he's no longer coming. That way they can focus all of the attention on Atkinson. They're kind of all in on him. That's who they want. And I would expect they would ride it out with him until he reaches some kind of resolution.
Well, who else is near the top of the board?
For Atkinson? Or you talking about other players coming?
Other players coming this weekend.
You got one running back coming in, Jay Lamar. He's from Georgia. They did have 2. Another one was Carson Baker, but he scratched Clemson from his list. I always thought Clemson probably had the better shot at landing Lamar than they did Baker anyways. I know there's a coach on the staff there at his high school that's got a little bit of a connection to Clemson, but he's the only running back. They're only going to take one. So you can kind of like with Atkinson, you can go all in on him. We've had a couple of receivers scratched. Sadarian Morgan, the 5-star, he scratched Clemson from his list. They were supposed to have 4-star Craig Dandridge in, but that got scratched. I think that was kind of more of a mutual thing. The way these things are structured now, Clemson's already got 3 wide receivers committed in this class. You got to decide, with the way you're pooling money and stuff, you got to decide how much you're going to spend on each position. And I just don't know that Clemson's planning on spending a whole lot more on a 4th receiver. They do have one coming in now, 3-star Devin Fitzgerald, who is the son of former NFL All-Pro Larry Fitzgerald. Then you got several offensive linemen coming in. You got 4-star Carter Scruggs, 4-star Cannon Pickett, 4-star Leo Delaney, 4-star Ikem Aboko, 4-star Darius Gray, and 3-star Dalton Toothman. And Clemson's already got 4 offensive linemen committed. I think they want to add at least 1, maybe even 2 more. So you land a couple of these guys. That's going to give Clemson one of his best group of offensive linemen ever because they've already got 4 committed. They're all 4-stars. Grant Wise, Adam Guthrie, Chance Barkley, and Braden Wiles. That's 4 very good offensive linemen. You had the defensive lineman Bryce Perry Wright's coming in. He's listed as a defensive lineman by the services. Probably could play end or tackle depending on what they want to do with him. I would, the way defensive end's kind of shaping up for Clemson, I'm thinking maybe he might at least start out at defensive end because I think that's one of their biggest positions of need. Other ends that'll be there are Trey Quinn, a 4-star out of Georgia, and 3-star J.R. Hardrick out of Tennessee. Hardrick's a guy that they just got in on here within the last month, offered him a couple weeks ago. Pretty safe bet. I think he's probably going to end up being a part of the class and real quickly. And then you have defensive end Xavion Griffin-Haynes out of North Carolina. He's also coming in. Clemson's been on his list, been off his list, back on his list, off his list. So, he's kind of been all over the place. Hard to get a good read on. Then you got safety Tylen Wilson, a 4-star, and a 5-star safety Joey O'Brien. And 4-star safety Blake Stewart. Those are the guys that I have as of right now. Samari Matthews, cornerback, has been Clemson's top target at the position going back or one of Clemson's top targets at the position going back forever. Just in the past day or two, he's scratched Clemson from his list. That's a recruitment that's kind of heading in the opposite. Those are 2 parties trending in opposite directions. So.
And you're going to know so much more, after these visits when there's some talk out there. But as it stands right now, you're letting us know somebody that's trending away from Clemson. Do you have any other decent leans on any of these other guys?
I think Clemson's in a pretty good spot with Bryce Perry Wright. They've been in on him forever. There's a connection there with Nick Eason. He's visited more times than I can count off the top of my head in the past, 12, 15 months. He's been a very frequent visitor to Clemson. One of the better linemen in the class. And again, he's one of those versatile guys. You could probably, slide him in at the end, or if you want to add a little bulk to him, he can play on the interior. But, with where Clemson is at defensive end at the moment, it's just, I would kind of see him probably sliding in at the end. He's a guy I think Clemson's in really good shape with. Again, I think they're in good shape with defensive end J.R. Hardrick. The offensive lineman, Carter Scruggs, another 4-star kid. I think they're in really good shape with him. Probably in better shape with him than any of those other offensive linemen. And Tylen Wilson, the safety, I think they're in a pretty good spot with him. Those would be the guys right off the top that I think they're probably in the best shape with at this point. But that's what this weekend's all about. This is when they kind of roll the red carpet out. It's one of their 2 biggest events of the year, probably their biggest event of the year. And this is when they try to reel those guys in.
Got Jason Priester on the line from the Clemson Insider. You've got Jason's Twitter handle right there, and also Clemson Insider. So check it out. A lot of preseason top 25 lists out there, and people love Clemson this year. They have jumped on. A lot of people have them high in the top 10, the top 5. Now, Kate Klubnik had a tremendous year last year, and he's just expected to take off, and he's got his receivers back. I haven't done a deep dive on Clemson to really break down what they've lost and what's coming back other than listening to you. Do you think that's justified? Why do you think people are so high on Clemson?
I think a big part of it is how much they actually have returning. You kind of touched on it there. That's what it is. They've got so many guys back. The retention rate that they were able to, accomplish after the season was kind of unheard of in this era. They pretty much kept everybody they wanted to keep intact. A guy like Antonio Williams, who could have easily slid off and entered the draft, he's coming back for his senior season. You get those 2 wide receivers in Wesco and TJ Moore back. You add a guy via the portal and Tristan Smith, a legitimate big body threat on the outside, 6'5" guy. And you also get Tyler Brown back, who missed all of last season, kind of become the forgotten man in that wide receiver room. You also get 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen back. The only one you got to replace is left guard Marcus Tate. Really on offense, the biggest question is Phil, who replaces Phil Maffa? Jay Haynes, who had kind of stepped up when Maffa got hurt late last season, when that injury really started to show itself late last season. He tore ACL in the ACC championship game. So that job's kind of wide open, and they moved Adam Randall over there for the college football playoff game against Texas. He stayed there through the spring. The returns were really good. We didn't see much of him in the spring game, to get a real good, view of it ourselves. But, everything I've heard has been extremely positive. And then you got that freshman, Gideon Davidson, I think he was one of the top 5 backs in the last recruiting class. That they're expecting him to have an impact this year. So I think that's a big part of it, what they're returning on offense. And they get a lot back on defense. They're still they're very deep along the interior of that defensive line. They brought in Will Help at defensive end through the transfer portal to kind of play opposite of TJ Parker, who has kind of grown into a superstar there. That was one of the weak spots last year, that spot opposite him. So they did something to shore that up. You do lose Barrett Carter at linebacker, but, in essence, you kind of replacing him with Sammy Brown, a guy who got a lot of experience last year. Wade Woodaz is back. You got a lot of those guys in that secondary back. Avion Terrell, Ashton Hampton, he was a freshman last year. He played a lot at corner. Jaden Lucas seems to be finally trending towards being fully healthy. He's had a lot of injury issues. You got a couple other young freshmen, young players, including Corey and Gibson at corner, who redshirted last year. And then at safety, you get a lot of guys back too. You got to replace R.J. Mickens, and I think that's a big loss because he was a big part of the back end of that defense last year. But you get guys like Khalil Barnes back, Kylon Griffin back. You got Ricardo Jones, who got his feet wet a good bit last year and really showed flashes of potential. So I think that's a big part of why people are so high on this team. But first and foremost, it starts with the quarterback position. Seeing what Kay Klubnik did last year, he quietly had an extremely good year, 36 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, really cut down on those turnovers. And then watching him in that second half against Texas do something to that Longhorns defense nobody did all year long. I think that's a big part of the hype for going into this 2025 season.
Jason, I don't know if you're into rankings, all-time rankings, 21st century rankings, anything like that. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, they have been just churning these things out in the last couple of weeks, and they've got one for the 21st century, and they've got coaches for the 21st century. Where would you guess that Clemson would be ranked? Now, obviously, Now, if your response is going to be like me, when people ask me, who do you think is going to win the Heisman Trophy? I say, well, you're asking me to predict what somebody else is going to vote. Like you're not asking me who's going to win a game. You're asking me somebody else is going to vote. So I'm doing the same thing here. But like, what would be your gauge on Clemson in the 2000s?
In the 2000s? Where do I think they'd be ranked at?
Yes. For the entire 2000s.
Let's see, that's 25 years, and they probably around 15 is probably where I think he'd put them.
Number 6.
Look at there. Surprise, surprise. Because Clemson was kind of mediocre from about 2000 to 2014, which, they did have a 11-win season in there. The tide started to turn about 2011, to be honest. So Dabo's second full year on the job.
Yeah, so that's and they've got the 7th best winning percentage in the century. They've been to 10 BCS bowls or New Year's 6 bowls, 9 conference championships, 23 10-win seasons. According to this, that doesn't make sense. They don't have 23. Why does it say? Oh, top 10 wins. I'm sorry, top 10 wins. They got 23. That's the 8th most in college football. They've got the 11th most top 25 wins, is how that shakes out. Now, I think they also had, I may be all over the place trying to follow. There, we got it right there. Here are the coaches' rankings. And this is Chris Vanini of The Athletic. Dabo's at 5 this century.
Yeah, that's a little low for me. He's got 2 national titles. I'd probably have him 3 or 4. But those are all really good coaches they have ranked ahead of him. I have no problem with Saban being number 1. I don't know that I'd have Meyer ranked second, I don't know, based off some of the off-field stuff, but he's got multiple national titles. Pete Carroll has won it all. Georgia's won a couple under Kirby there. And, Kirby's won them more recently than Dabo has. So I would definitely have him above Dabo at this point. But
Really?
Yeah, right now.
Well, this is since 2000. It's not right now.
We're just going since 2000. I think Dabo's probably got a better track record than Kirby all time.
I think he should be ranked ahead of Kirby.
Yeah,
I think he should be ranked ahead of Kirby basically because he's done what Kirby's done, but he didn't take over Mark Richt's Georgia program. He didn't take over a top 10 program.
He had to reinvent that Clemson program because it was kind of, let's just say, stuck in the mud. They weren't terrible under Tommy Bowden. They were decent. They had some good years. They never great, just couldn't get over that hump. Dabo kind of had a vision that he wanted to instill there at Clemson, and that's a big part of what got him the job is selling the administration on that vision. And, it didn't take him long. Again, I think 2011, they had the 6-7 season there in 2010. Then in 2011, he had them in the Orange Bowl. They got whipped that year in the Orange Bowl. But he had them in the Orange Bowl. It didn't take him long. They played in a lot of BCS or New Year's 6 games is what they call them now. Again, he's played in, 4 national championship games, won 2 of them. I mean, that's a lot of success. Yeah, that's more success than Kirby's had to this point. So if we're going back to the 2000s, I'd probably have Dabo ahead of Kirby.
Yeah. All right, Jason. Good stuff. Appreciate you stopping by.
My pleasure, my friend. Anytime.
Yeah, get back out to the diamond. When's game 1?
Game 1's Friday, 6:00. But I'm actually fixing to leave right now to head that way. I got media stuff in the morning. I kind of been waiting to do this before I hit the road.
Well, thanks for hanging out for us then.
My pleasure, buddy.
Thanks, JP. See ya. Have a good trip.
Man.
Listen to that, folks. Jason Priester sticking around to jump on our fine show here. So that's nice to hear. And Jason, that doesn't surprise me. I would have told him, Jason, hit the road. Get on the road. You don't need to hang around for us. We'll have you on next week, but that was very kind of Jason to do that. So we do appreciate all of you too here at the Voice of College Football. And yes, Todd, I agree that Dabo should be higher. And yes, I do agree, Steve, off the top of my head, that Tress should be ahead of Stoops. Stoops pretty much accomplished what Tressel did, but Tressel did it like, boom, in 10 years. And Stoops took 20 practically. And, well, I don't want to necessarily say that Tressel did it in a more difficult conference, but, you know, those Ohio State teams lived in the top 5 and played in BCS bowls over and over and over and over and over. But then again, Bob Stoops' teams did as well. He had a few more dips, though. Just 1 year dips. They weren't like 3-year dips. But interesting to break down these lists. And I still need to get to the all-time program rankings. Still need to continue to tally those up and get those out to everyone here very soon. But maybe the SEC meetings have given me some fodder, possibly. All right, we've got an 8:30 show with Leanne Herring. Make it on back here. Even if you're not big into recruiting, you can just call us and talk some college football. It's on the move. It's our recruiting and transfer portal update coming up live Wednesday. That's tonight, 8:30 Eastern Time. Leanne Herring and myself and all of you. In the meantime, I'm actually headed to make a guest appearance on Chuck on Bucks. And that's going to be recorded tonight. And then you will see that in the morning. And then we've got the Miami show at 7 Eastern. We will see you then, 7 Eastern with Cam Underwood, State of the U, Miami. And then the 8:30 show back here with you, me, Leanne Herring. We all get together. And we got the big call-in show tonight. See you at 8:30. You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact. Just like whatever link you use right now, no difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.